So the last paper is a short paper, and it's about mid-air interaction. Okay.
Hi, my name is Xintian. I'm from Fraser University, and I'm here to present this paper, Hitting the Wall, Mid-Air Interaction for Eye-Hand Coordination. My co-authors are Ufuk, Dogu, and my supervisor, Professor Wolfgang. This paper will focus on virtual reality reaction time training system for sports. So nowadays, there are some sensory stations for sports training. They are majorly for interaction training, such as Nike Spark and Synaptic. One of many tasks that they have, one of them is eye-hand coordination, and it's also the task that we focus on in this research. Here is an image of example for eye-hand coordination task. So it's the task the target randomly appears on the screen, and the user uses the hand to touch the target. In these tasks, currently they are on 2D touch screen. We try to re-implement it into a virtual reality system. There are several reasons to do so. First, virtual reality is more accessible now. It's easier and to be moved to different training locations compared to a large training station. And it also provides a more controllable environment, and this makes the result analyzing easier. We can also collect more detailed data from the virtual reality system, such as the hand rotation, the head movement. These data are not available with the 2D touchscreen. Also, previous research shows that the training in virtual reality can reduce injuries for athletes. There are some related previous work. First is Fitz's law. Fitz's law models pointing task with arm and hand. Here is the equation for Fitz's law. A and B are two constants, and the ID, which also is the log term, is the index of difficulty, which means how difficult the task is. The capital A is the distance, and the W is the target width. We also have two other terms for the Fitz's law. One is the throughput, which is a combination of measuring both index of difficulty and movement for human performance. Another one is the error rate, so it measures the accuracy of the movement. We also have the visual feedback. The visual feedback gives user a clue of the environment, such as highlighting the object and the environment depth clue, and this feedback can help improve the user's performance. Passive haptic feedback is slightly different from the common feedback we got from controller, which is such a vibration. Passive haptic feedback instead is like touching object. So it's like here the object, you touch it, and you feel this object exists there. So that is the passive haptic. And such feedback increase the sense of presence for the user in this virtual environment, so that the user not only see the object there, but also can touch it, can reach it. And such feedback, based on previous study, can improve user performance. As for cursor size variation, this is also previously studied. It's such as bubble cursor. Bubble cursor is a cursor that the size changes based on the distance between the cursor and the target. Prince technique is an area selection tool. Both the cursor and the target size can affect the user performance. We have 3 hypotheses. First, Fitts law can be applied to VR-based athlete training system, which we will evaluate later. Second, sports training system in VR replicate real-world training applications. This one, we based on the Spark training system. It has been used by many athletes, and also previous studies show that the Spark system is a reliable training system. So we replicate the same task to make it replicate a real-world training. The third one, Fitts law is applicable with varied target and cursor size. So our experiment, we have 12 participants. Our experiment is a within subject design. We have 6 main experimental conditions. Within the 6 main conditions, we have 3 interaction modes. They are VR controller, haptic feedback, and mid-air. So here is an example for the VR controller. The VR controller, like the left one you see is the white sphere you see is the VR controller in the virtual environment. The second one here is the user holding a controller. Here are 2 images for the haptic feedback. The first one is the user's hands in virtual environment. The second one is the user use the hand to touch the wall, the surface of the wall, as a haptic feedback. And the mid-air is like a combination of both. So the user uses the hand instead of the controller in the environment, but the user don't touch the wall, so they use it in mid-air. That's why it's called mid-air. We have 2 sphere selection variations, cursor and target. So we first see the cursor and target. So on the left, there's 2 examples of the cursors, and here is the virtual target. So the target is like a button. You can see it's like a semi-sphere with like a cylinder. So you user can push the target with the cursor. The sphere selection, the sphere size variation, there's some details about it. On the left, you see with the target variation, the cursor stays same as 10 millimeters, and the target varies from large to small, which are 48 and 32 and 16 millimeters, vice versa for the cursor variation. In the experiment, we counterbalance with the Latin squares. Here is our procedure. We start with a demographic questionnaire for users, and then we use practice trial to get them familiar with the task. Then we start the experimental trials. In each trial, the one random button will appear as highlighted in yellow, and then the user use the either their hand or the controller to push the current yellow button. And when they push the current yellow button, the next button will be highlighted. So just keep going on until the end of each task. Between each reaction mode, the user gets breaks. After the entire experiment trial, the user do a post-study questionnaire. Here is a video of the procedure. So this is the VR controller condition. And then haptic feedback condition, you can see the hand touch the wall. Then the mid-air condition, you see same with the hand, but the hand don't really touch the wall here. And as you can also see in this procedure, although the spheres get highlighted randomly, there are some limits, some controls of this random. We can highlight either a target 2 targets away, or 3 targets away, or 4 targets away from the current highlighted target as the next target. Or it can be 2 targets away in diagonal. So that later with the data analyzing, we have some control of the data, so we can analyze the data easily. Here is the data analysis procedure. We first delete all the double-click data, so which means the user click one spot twice by accident. We use a Fischler model, and we used repeated ANOVA in SPSS. We check the normative of data, use cursors, skewness, and kurtosis. Both values are within ±1. We use seduct method for post hoc analysis. Here is the plot for Fischler model. Because we can see here, we plot the time versus the index of difficulty. And the plot shows that our data fits the Fischler model well, and so that the Fischler can be used to analyze the user experience here. Here is the main result. It's for interaction mode. As we can see, this highlighted circle with the haptic feedback, actually the user performed slower, made more mistake, and had a smaller throughput. So this is different from what we expected. So why would this happen? We have 3 potential explanations. First, it's possible that because the user is holding a controller as a tool. Previous study showed that if user hold a tool in hand, it improves their performance for the nearby environment. Another possibility is the user may lack trust of this system, which means that the user, for example, they cannot really see the wall when they are in the virtual environment, and they cannot really see their real hand either. It's the hand in the virtual environment looks different from their real hand. And also, the touch feeling of the wall would be different from what they expect from a button. So this can cause a misbelief of the environment, which may lead to a slower performance. Another possibility is the hand in a virtual environment covers large area than a controller, which may block their view for some targets nearby. So they spend more time looking for the next target. That's another possibility that the haptic feedback made the user perform slower. Here we also have results for the sphere selection. We see that the user performed faster and made less error with varied target size. However, the throughput, there's no significance for the throughput between these 2 conditions. We also see some details from the sphere variation, sphere size variation. We see that the user performed faster and made fewer errors with larger target size. The throughput decreased with the small sphere, which is for both target and cursor. So here is the results for the interaction. there's significant interaction between the sphere size variation and the interaction mode. And we can also see the difference between the cursor and target is larger in these haptic feedback conditions, as you can see in these middle circles. Here we also have some analysis for the movement direction. As I mentioned earlier, although the targets appear random, they appear either like 2 or 4 targets, 2 or 3 or 4 targets away. And we have direction like upward and downward and to the side and also diagonal. The results of this movement direction is just as we expected. It also confirms previous research results. So the results are the user performed slower for longer distance, and they also made more errors for upward direction. The throughput decreased for the shorter distance. Here we have results for the training effect. Because in this experiment, the user repeat each task 3 times. So in these 3 repetitions, the user's speed and throughput increase. However, there's no significant change for the error rate. Here are our subjective measures from the user's questionnaire. As we can see, user prefers the larger target size with smaller cursor size. And the user prefers the VR controller conditions. So these results match our objective measurements. So in conclusion, for our current, this specific system, passive haptic feedback may not be a great option. However, we also see the possibility to improve it, for example, to develop the user's trust of the system, maybe to try a different way of the passive haptic feedback. We also see that both target and cursor should be considered for design in such system. In our experiment, we had participants not really as a professional athletes. They are from our community, but not professional athletes. So we would like to see how would professional athletes perform in such tasks. Would it be different results from other people? Okay. Thank you for listening.
Questions?
Thank you for the great talk. A question regarding the results from the haptic feedback. Do you think that the results would have changed if you modeled the wall in virtual reality, so that the...
Oh, you mean if we have a wall in virtual reality?
Yes.
We actually kind of have. As you can see, we have like a transparent surface. You can see like it's dark, it's transparent. So we kind of have a wall, but the wall is like behind the targets, not really on the targets. And the wall is, like if the target's here, the wall is kind of here. Yeah, but it's transparent. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you for the talk. And for mid-air interactions, how do you track the hand? Are you using a leap motions?
Yes.
And do you find leap motions to be reliable in terms of position of the hand and for the task? Thank
Yes,
you.
for this specific experiment it is. Because we had a wall that is not smooth. The wall is like soft with fiber material. And this fiber material helped for tracking. If it was like smooth, hard wall, it may be different. But this wall really helped us. Yeah.
Okay, more questions? I have a couple of questions, but I'll start with one. Related to this one, did it matter with what finger they are touching the target, or did it just drag whenever you touch it with some part of your hand?
You mean
Yeah.
You mean the cursor?
Yes.
Yeah. So this sphere, the white sphere,
Okay.
is the cursor.
Okay.
So the cursor touches the target.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my other question is, if it would have depth in addition, you think that the results would change?
The depths.
Yes. So some targets are a little bit more further, closer to the participant, and some targets are a little bit deeper inside.
That would be a different thing. If we have like depths, we will not be able to implement it with the wall. Because like the wall, we cannot have different layer of wall and then the hand goes through it, right? So it would be a very different experiment, I would say.
Any more questions? I have one more quick question.
Yes.
Maybe you are familiar with the work by Powell. So he evaluated different spheres or different types of spheres, and he found out that depending on the form of the target, people perform differently. So, and he actually found out that people perform worse if you have a sphere. So if you have like a cube or something like that, it performs slightly better because it has more surfaces.
You mean excuse me, you mean the target?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
Okay.
And actually, our target is not completely a sphere. It's like semi-sphere. It's a button. So it's a sphere and then there's a cylinder. Yeah, I'm not sure if it will be the same case for a sphere and a semi-sphere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much.